More on this, let's ask Monica Crowley, former Assistant Treasury Secretary for Public Affairs and host of the Monica Crowley podcast, and Jason Trennert, who is Chairman and CEO at Strategic Securities. Good to see you both. Monica, I'll go to you first on this universal income. I mean, I said you can't, the states and the localities can't print money, but the federal government can. And you know that there are people in the Biden administration who want to apply this nationwide. Is that if there is a second Biden term, what we would begin to see this sort of thing roll out?
Oh, absolutely. You're already starting to see movement in that direction. They would love to do it on a nationwide level. But these deep blue states like California and deep blue areas, certain cities are guaranteeing this universal income. That is essentially communism, right? Where you have an equal baseline. You've got an equal share of poverty and misery, but you've got an equal baseline where everybody is relatively economically equal. So understand where these people are coming from. It is Marxism, and that's where they're trying to move all of these areas. To your point about the states, they cannot print money. So all of these states are imploding. Illinois, Washington State, California, New York imploding. And on top of that, you've got the tsunami of illegal immigration, which is also draining mass resources in these states. So, of course, they are going to come to the federal government and want bailouts.
Well, by the way,
and that means you and me.
California just announced their deficit has been creeping up. First, it was supposed to be a surplus. Then it was $3 billion. Now it is $68 billion, their deficit, because they can't pay for all this stuff. Jason, the other thing that is coming from California, of course, is this minimum wage increase, which is happening overnight for fast food restaurants. And, of course, a lot of these McDonald's and Burger Kings and everything else are franchises owned by moms and pops who get maybe a 3% profit margin. You know, suddenly with a 3% profit margin, you have to increase your wages 25%. It went from $15 an hour to $20 an hour. That's going to break them.
Of course. And I think you think about Margaret Thatcher. Said, socialism's great. The problem is sooner or later you run out of other people's money. Right. And this is where we are now in the country, because I think there's actually a war on work. Work is seen by a lot of people on the left and a lot of people in popular culture now as almost an inconvenience, not something that provides you with something of value, something that gives you personal worth. And here, this is an attack. Trust me, this is an attack on jobs, because these businessmen and women are not going to be able to afford to hire the numbers of people that they wanted to in the past.
They are just in this bubble. They're in this bubble against reality. And by the way, sticking with you for a second, you came out with a great, Larry's often said, like the core CPI that excludes food and energy, you want to have just food and energy and some other things that really affect people, food, energy, housing, clothing, insurance, and utilities. You put together the common man CPI and found out that it has outpaced wages by 7% during the Biden administration. We're not talking about 2% with the core rate, 7%. That's why people are hurting.
Sure. The Bureau of Labor Statistics publishes the core CPI, which excludes food and energy. But for most people, eating and staying warm is pretty core. So we decided to create an index of just things people have to buy every day and every month. And what you're finding, it's the cumulative impact of inflation that's why people are so grumpy. People could say now on the other side, gee, real wages are starting to increase. The problem is they're still behind. They're 7% behind where they were 3 years ago. Their standard of living has deteriorated in the last 3 years.
Well, let's be a little more upbeat. Rather than thinking of a Biden second term, let's think of a Trump second term.
Yes.
If Trump wins the election, there's a lot of questions about Treasury Secretary. And one name, we were kind of kibitzing about that before we came on. One name that I thought was kind of smart was Jamie Dimon, because he's a Democrat, and everybody's saying that Trump is, wants to exclude anybody but a Trump-like person. He's an independent thinker. Any chance that a Democrat like Jamie Dimon, he's one of the few moderate Democrats left in the world, would be the Treasury Secretary?
Look, I don't know where President Trump is thinking. I know he's thinking in a lot of different directions for a lot of different cabinet posts, having spent 2 years at Treasury. But you worked there. Yeah, and Secretary Mnuchin was a very effective Treasury Secretary. Was. And not only do you need to know the world of finance, and President Trump is looking at a number of figures, including John Paulson, investor Scott Bessent, some others, but outside the box as well. Robert Lighthizer was his trade representative. Jamie Dimon is on that list. Jamie Dimon is a longtime Democrat.
Yes. And he may differ from certainly the Lighthizer mode with regard to trade policy.
And I would tell you that a core element of being Treasury Secretary is dealing with China. trade policy, sanctions on all kinds of enemies around the world. So you need somebody who is on the same page with regard to China. And I'm not sure that Jamie Dimon would be particularly.
He's not as far as Blackstone, though. I mean, Chase is.
No, but you really need somebody who is very similar in the thinking toward an aggressive approach to China as President Trump is.
They're giving me a rep, but you're going to be going to that Trump event this weekend, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, they're hoping. You think he'll make 32 million, which is what he wants?
Let's hope so. The Lord only knows. The country needs a different direction. There's no.
You weren't always, by the way. You're not a never Trumper, but you were not always a just Trump guy.
I've always been pretty positive on the president, particularly as it relates to his economic policies. And I think now, especially with what's gone on over the last several weeks, not just economically but also culturally in this country, we need a change. I feel very strongly about that.
We need a fix. We need a fix, and that's going to take a lot of tooling by somebody who knows how to fix things. Somebody who's built a few buildings in his life,
That's Donald J. Trump.
All right, folks, thank you very much. Good to see you both. Jason,
You
wonderful
too.
to see you.